We have updates on the shooting that took place in Minneapolis. We also have reporters telling a chief of police that the riots weren't in fact riots, even though he said they were riots. We also have Mike Rowe's opinion on the $15 minimum wage, and a California high school teacher blasts students for being concerned regarding distance learning. And I have a lot to say about that. Welcome to the Bald Brad Show, and before we get into our lead story, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really does help push my video out there to viewers who have not seen any of my content. And also, if you enjoy the Bald Brad Show, please make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as the bell notification button so you are notified whenever we upload a video or go live, which is every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And for our lead story of the day, it comes from our friends over at Daily Wire. If you're not already subscriber, please go over and become a member today. I wanted to give my opinion on the Minneapolis police shooting, as well as give you some updates that we have as of today. So this article is written by Ryan Saavedra, and he titles it, "Police Release Video of Minneapolis Shooting, Claim Officer Thought She Was Firing Taser." The Brooklyn Center Police Department released body camera footage on Monday from a shooting that happened on Sunday when Daunte Wright, 20, tried to run from law enforcement. Police said Monday that they believe the officer thought she was firing her taser when she shot the suspect. The police department said in a press release that officers determined that the suspect had an outstanding warrant for his arrest. Reporter Andy No highlighted the alleged charges that Wright was wanted on, including running from law enforcement and a weapons charge is what it says. At one point, as officers were attempting to take the driver into custody, the driver re-entered the vehicle, meaning his vehicle. One officer discharged their firearm, striking the driver, police said. The vehicle traveled several blocks before striking another vehicle. Officers in pursuit and responding medical personnel attempted life-saving measures, but the person died at the scene. And then there's a video, of the body cam footage of this interaction taking place. I'm not going to play it on my channel. I don't like really showing people getting shot. But it goes on to say the footage of the incident appeared to show the female officer yelling taser. And she does in the video. She goes taser, 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 which is going to kind of signify to everybody else to kind of be careful because we're about to discharge this and you don't want to hit your fellow officer. Before discharging her firearm, officials have not released the identity of the police officer who has been placed on administrative leave. It is my belief that the officer had the intention to deploy their taser, but instead shot Mr. Wright with a single bullet, Chief Tim Gannon of Brooklyn Center Police Department said. This appears to me, from what I viewed and the officer's reaction and distress immediately after, that this was an accidental discharge that resulted in a tragic death of Mr. Wright. Following the incident on Sunday afternoon, hundreds of rioters attacked police cars and a police station while looters ravaged nearby businesses. The National Guard was later deployed to help stop the rioting in the city that was devastated by violent riots last year that cost well into hundreds of millions of dollars. The suspect's mother said that she was on the phone with him when the incident happened and that she heard police tell her son, Daunte, don't run. I am closely monitoring the situation in Brooklyn Center. Democrat Minnesota Governor Tim Walz tweeted after the situation turned chaotic. Gwen and I are praying for Daunte's family as our state mourns another life of a black man taken by law enforcement. Our entire community is filled with grief following today's officer-involved shooting of Daunte Wright, a 20-year-old man, Brooklyn Center Mayor Mike Elliott said on Twitter. Our hearts are with his family and with all those in our community impacted by this tragedy. While we await additional information from the BCA, who is leading the investigation, we continue to ask that members of our community gathering do so peacefully amid our calls for transparency and accountability. Well, it definitely sounds, guys, like they're peacefully doing everything, right? Looting Walmarts, Foot Lockers, any business they can because they're woke, all in the sake of police brutality, all in the sake of racism. We're going to go and loot businesses and get free stuff because that image is a good image. Now, I did want to give my opinion on this. I do believe that is why some of you do watch the show because you want Bald Brad's opinion, which I will give it to you. Also, as somebody that's family was law enforcement, my grandfather was a highway patrolman. My father was a highway patrolman for 13 years before transitioning into becoming a CPA, a public accountant. But there's a couple things with this. So first, When I first heard this story, I was thinking, okay, you're discharging a taser, but you shot the guy. And there's a lot of things that are going through my head. First of which, when you have an interaction with somebody, could the person or the police officer have the possibility of mistaking her own weapon for a taser? Maybe. When you're already kind of, juices are going, anxiety's going, stress is going, all these things, you're not necessarily thinking about the feel of your weapon when it's being drawn and to discharge it. And so when I heard that she thought it was a taser, before I ever saw the video, my first thinking was, if I'm going to at least believe a portion of what she's saying, then I want to make sure that she only fired one shot. If she's firing multiple shots, then I'm thinking, okay, well, after the first one, you should have realized that it probably wasn't your taser and have backed away from the scene at that point. Well, upon viewing the video, you do hear her say taser, 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 taser to all those around, letting them know, hey, I'm about to discharge. This person's going to be hit with a taser. Be careful. But then upon that, she ends up firing a shot at Daunte Wright, and he ends up driving off. And you hear her go, I just shot the guy. And I don't remember on the video if she said, I thought it was a taser, but to me, it appears that it, at least from the video, it appears to be an accident. Now, I'm always having an open opinion with stuff because I like having more evidence to be able to make an educated opinion on things. Whereas the CNNs, the MSNBC, the news outlets of the left, they're going to push a certain narrative on all of us that this person was a kind person, went to church 5 days a week, did canned food drives, showing the most elegant picture of the person. But in reality, that's really not who the person is. And Andy Ngo went out and did some reporting to show us this is the type of person this person is, had warrants out for their arrest, had an illegal firearm, a Ruger 45, had already escaped from police beforehand. And so with that type of information in the police's hands, they're already expecting the possibility of this person escaping them, which is why you see that police interaction being handled the way it's being handled. Now, was the officer wrong in shooting? Yes, this is a bad shoot. Clearly an accident based on the video. If more evidence comes in, I'm more than happy to change my viewpoint on it. Also, the victim of this tragedy is also at fault because when you're evading police, you increase the likelihood of an event, whether it was uncertain or certain, of occurring. Whereas if you had never gotten back in your vehicle and tried to escape from police, the likelihood of that event would have not been as great as it would have been you getting into the car and escaping. So basically, by you being a knucklehead and getting back in that car and escaping or trying to escape from the police, you increase the chance of an accident happening upon you from that police department, which it did. Now, I'm using the term unlikely because even if he were to escape from police, right, like he did, and not be shot, that outcome is more likely to happen, a successful outcome of him escaping. I'm not saying get away totally, right? But just him getting in the car and getting away from police. That statistical outcome has a greater probability than him being fatally shot from the police. But again, that statistic changes the moment that you now have externalities, an illegal weapon, police are on edge, you've already evaded police before. The statistics of it, which obviously I don't have on hand, but we know that probability just in general would increase the likelihood of some event happening. It's all technically unlikely. Anything under the 5% of a probability is considered unlikely. But again, by him doing this, he only ended up increasing that probability of an accident occurring, which it ended up happening, which is sad because he lost his life based on an idiotic decision that he made. Now, people are going to get pissed, like, oh, well, you're just siding with the police. No, I'm not actually siding with anybody here. I think it's tragic for both parties. She made a mistake and he made a mistake. The mistake's probably going to cost her life in prison because she's probably going to go to manslaughter. So she probably lost her job. She probably might have lost her pension, depending on how long she's been in or whatever the police department's qualifications are for keeping your pension. And 3, she's probably going to go to jail for manslaughter, whether that's a certain amount of years or for the rest of her life. He paid a penalty as well, which was his life, which is the ultimate cost for making a really poor decision. Should that decision have led to him being shot? No. And I don't know anybody that's going to say, yeah, this person should have been shot. That was a good shoot. Awesome, awesome, awesome. No, everybody's looking at it probably the same way a lot of conservatives are, going, whoa, that was a really bad shoot. That was clearly an accident of what it seems like on the video. We're all open to have our minds changed, but he was also a knucklehead at the same time. So two things could be true at once, but you're just going to have people that are going to go out there and riot, steal stuff from Walmart, Foot Locker, all in the sake of racism, all in the sake of police brutality. And it just shows you that whoever's doing the looting are scumbags, and they're disgusting because they don't care about Mr. Wright, and they don't care about the police officer that accidentally basically shot this person and basically destroyed her life, right? From a moment, split second action that took place. And again, when your anxiety is already going, your stress is already going, there's a lot of things that are happening that you're not necessarily thinking about. And it's going to cost her, and it cost somebody else their life. So it's a very tragic event, and I don't see anything here that has to do with racism. This person, just because they were black-skinned, if it was a white person and they had a warrant out for having the exact same rap sheet, and this person evaded police and got shot, I would be doing the same story if it was big news. But because the person wasn't white, it's ultimately going to be mainstream media news, and everybody's going to hear about it. If this person was white, none of us would have heard about it. That's just how things work. As you all know, the media have a narrative that they're trying to push, and they're going to continually push it. And again, be prepared for CNN, MSNBC, the stuff you've seen before, posting the nice photos, saying, oh, he had an air freshener in his car. Let's focus on that. It's like they're going to focus on these small little details that don't really have anything to do with what happened. And that's the typical narrative that the left pushes. They're going to focus on small little things that don't have a big representation of what is actually happening here. And I talk about that all the time, more in terms of outliers and statistics or data that they're using. But when it comes to a fatal shooting like this, and the person doesn't have a great rap sheet, they're not really a quote-unquote stand-up citizen, then they're going to focus on whatever they can, the little bits of information that they can about this person to make them look like a stand-up citizen. But as you can see here, Andy Ngo posted footage of this guy holding up a gun, looks like to the camera. It has a picture of him as well. So it's not great images of this person. Now, could this person have done great work? Sure. I don't know anything about this guy, so I'm going to keep kind of some of my opinions to myself. But based on what I'm seeing, it's not looking good as far as this is a person that is really an asset to society at all. And that has nothing to do with his race. I would say the same thing if it was any person that was doing this crap. You shouldn't illegally have a firearm. You shouldn't be escaping from police. And you shouldn't be carrying weapons that aren't legally registered. And if you don't have a conceal and carry, then you shouldn't be concealing and carry. So nothing to do with race, has everything to do with the individual, which is constantly what we promote on this show. You as an individual is what matters. Your skin color does not matter. Your ethnicity does not matter. What your individual decisions are is what's going to dictate whether somebody thinks what you did was good or what you did was bad, based on your decisions. Nobody cares as far as conservatives about your skin color. I know the leftist media want you guys to think that, but it's just not true. Now, in regards to the rioting, we have a news article here from Blaze Media, and it is titled, News Conference Attendees Actually Order Police Chief to Not Use Riot, the word riot, to describe riot after fatally shooting of Daunte Wright. It isn't clear who ordered Police Chief Tim Gannon at his Monday news conference to not use the term riot to describe what by all reasonable definitions was in fact a riot that followed a police-involved fatal shooting of a black motorist on Sunday in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. According to CNN, activists as well as reporters were present during Gannon's remarks, but nonetheless, it was a bit over the top to witness the exchange as the chief stood at the podium. What was your description to issue a dispersal order while they were peacefully protesting in front of the police station, and then on the back end of the 10-minute dispersal order to issue out CO2 canisters and gas for the crowd? One person asked Gannon, and this was Gannon's reply.
So, just so everybody's clear, I was front and center at the protest, at the riot. We did not.
It was a riot. Don't do that. There was no riot.
There was. So, the officers that were putting themselves in harm's way were being pelted with frozen cans of pop. They were being pelted with concrete blocks. And yes, we had our helmets on and we had other protection gear, but an officer was injured, hit in the head with a brick. That was a Hennepin County deputy. He was transported to the hospital. So we had to make decisions. We had to disperse the crowd because we can't allow our officers to be harmed. And I've already answered the question, I believe, about your lighting. I know that's a big deal with you, and I understand that, but I thought I'd explain that myself. So that is, I told you it's my decision, and that's why I made that decision. Is there another question? Yes, ma'am.
I mean, the room's tense. I can feel it.
Yes, ma'am.
As you see in the video, the police chief replied, "Just so everybody's clear, I was front and center at the protest at the riot. I didn't take but a second or two for individuals in attendance to bark out, 'Don't do that,' and that was no riot, and that was not a riot." And you have Gannon there in the video saying, yes, there was. And so the reason why I wanted to bring up this article is because the media is going to paint this a certain way. And rather than reporting on the news, the actual facts of what happened, you have a police chief there saying there was a riot. There was, in fact, a riot. But in nowadays, 2021, this new era of journalism, it's all about having an opinion and a narrative. And you see that coming out now full force under the Biden administration, where reporters are just being roaming free, not giving their opinion, not saying, hey, this was a riot. This was a riot based on what the police chief said, and adding that into your article. Per blah, 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 per Tim Cannon stating that there was a riot in, blah, blah, blah town. This is what I saw and this is what I heard. That's what a reporter does. A reporter doesn't go, hey, it wasn't a riot. I'm telling you which words to use. It was not a riot. And that is how journalism has become corrupt in my mind in this country. Now, do I think the vast majority of reporters are corrupt? No. I think a lot of reporters do their job, and they do their job well. But when it comes to pushing a narrative, when it comes to pushing your opinion upon the American public, there are mainstream news outlets that push that kind of narrative upon people. And I don't think that's right. I think you should do your best, or at least to the best of your ability, to just push the facts. Now, if you are going to be biased, if you are going to push an agenda, at least be open about it. For example, on this show, very open. It's a conservative opinion news show, where I, as a conservative, as a registered Republican, give my opinion that should be in line with conservative or Republican values. In the same way, Fox News is a conservative Republican news outlet. They do the same thing. And then you also have CNN here that is supposed to be objective, but they have not come out and actually said that they're a leftist or Democratic news outlet. Where MSNBC has come out and said, like, hey, we're of the left. And that's kind of what we're going to push. And at least you know what you're going to get with them. But when you're out there saying that you're an objective news outlet, and then you're pushing a narrative, and you're even being outspoken about how you have certain biases, which I'm referring to specifically Don Lemon and Ben Shapiro back in the day, where Ben Shapiro said, well, Don, you have a bias then. He's saying, no, I don't. So I wanted to bring that so we're all aware of what is happening in our own milieu, in our own country, how they're going to spin not just the riots to make it look good, but also what happened with the shooting to make this person, this victim, look good as well. Again, both are tragedies, and whoever is doing the rioting is just, you're a scumbag of society. You are literally a disease to society if you're going out looting businesses. Those business owners weren't the ones that committed this or were involved in this. They had nothing to do with it. They could donate millions of dollars, for all you know, to black communities. They could donate millions of dollars to whatever communities of color it is, or organizations that support communities of color, and you're going to go out there and ruin their business, light their business on fire, which is only going to hurt those communities at the end of the day, because rather than donating that money, they're going to take that money and maybe repair that store that you just burned down or looted, whatever it may be. And so you're just hurting things. You're not making anything better. And also, too, it makes me want to not take you seriously. And I've spoken about this on Black Lives Matter, is everybody agrees with the idea that Black Lives Matter, right? Just the premise of what that phraseology means. Black Lives Matter. Yes. Right. Everybody. I'm still, again, like I said the other day, I'm still looking for the people that don't think Black Lives Matter. Has anybody, for the love of God, met anybody that doesn't think a black person's lives matter? Whether they're criminal or not, their life kind of matters. Now, we'll get into the capital punishment and that stuff later. But in general, a life matters no matter what your skin color is, again, because skin color doesn't matter. So I am a firm believer of all lives matter, and under that umbrella of all lives is Black, Hispanic, Mexican, white, whatever you want to label yourself as. You're under that. You're a human being. Also, as a Christian, which tends to be a lot of conservatives, life is precious to all of us. God refers to his own word, the Bible, as life. So, that's how important it is to all of us. And it's just that's my problem with Black Lives Matter, is that you're pushing kind of an idea that everybody agrees upon, but then behind the scenes, behind the curtain, you're pushing things that I don't agree with, and a lot of conservatives don't agree with, and that's what we don't like. And also, I don't take you seriously on anything that you say, because you're out there committing riots, looting, and acting silly. Your organization's acting silly, so I don't want to take anything that you say as serious, because I see your behavior. Now, if your behavior was professional and you're going out there and peacefully protesting, I'm more inclined to think, okay, these people actually do want to have a conversation, whoever it is that's out there protesting. They actually want to fix and resolve certain issues that we're having with whatever it may be. But, when you have a Black Lives Matter leader purchasing $1.4 million house or housing under a corporate entity, it makes you wonder, okay, are you just taking those donations and buying houses with them? There's a lot of questions to be had, but again, it's mostly just you having people doing knucklehead things of rioting and doing stupid crap under the emblem of Black Lives Matter, and that I'm not going to take seriously. Now, if you look at the Tea Party back in the day, when they protested peacefully, even though the media made it seem like they weren't, that they're a bunch of racists and Nazis, right, bigots, all those things, the Tea Party protesters literally cleaned up after themselves. They didn't burn down businesses. They didn't go loot Foot Lockers. They didn't go loot Walmart for a new PS5. They didn't do any of that. They sat there, got their voice heard, which is why a lot of people, including myself, took them seriously, even though I was on the side of the Tea Party. So that's my 2 cents in regards of not just what's going on with the police shooting, but also what is going on with the riots. Now, another thing I want to add in here in regards to this narrative of, well, it's only African-American men that are being pulled over, and they're the ones that really should have their hands on the steering wheel and all this stuff, right? They're the only ones that should be nervous when cops pull them over. Now, again, my grandfather was a highway patrolman, motorcycle police officer. My father was a highway patrolman, patrolled the 60 in California in a Mustang. So I'm very aware on what happens when you have an encounter with a police officer. My father was a white guy, right? He was from England, British guy. I'm white. I don't know if you can tell. He told me, and probably even goes further than I think even what maybe African-American people tell their son or daughter, whoever it is. My dad not only told me, you better damn well have your hands on the steering wheel. Don't move. Whatever that officer says, you say, yes, sir, no, sir. If he's being a jerk to you, meaning an a-hole, you still be respectful to him. You don't give him any reason to have a problem with you. Whatever that guy needs, you give him, whether you agree with it or not. He tells you to get out of the car, you get your ass out of the car. If he tells you, can I search your vehicle? You say yes. I know that's coming from a conservative. Now, am I okay with him searching my vehicle? Not really. I mean, do I have anything in there? No, which is basically why my dad's saying that, just let him search it. We know that there's not going to be anything in there. But you're only building credibility for yourself by following the officer's instructions, showing that you're not a threat. But my dad knew that there was bad eggs inside the police department, which is ultimately why he left. He didn't like the politics that were involved in it, which is why he became a CPA, an accountant, and very successful in life. But his conversations with me were very clear. I've been pulled over multiple times, and I've always done the exact same thing to the police officers. And even before they left my window, I always thanked them for their duty and their service to the communities of protecting us. Whether I thought the guy, even when the guy was, one time when I was in Long Beach, California, I got pulled over, and the guy was a complete asshole. I don't mean to cuss, forgive me, but he was. But even after dealing with him and getting written up for a ticket, which it wasn't for speeding or anything. I'm not gonna go into it. I don't think I should have had the ticket. I still took the ticket, and I still told the officer, I looked him straight in the eyes. I said, hey, I really appreciate your service and your duty for keeping our communities clean and keeping our communities safe. Please keep doing your job well. I really appreciate it. Right? So you have to be respectful to these police officers, whether you agree with them or not. These are people that are out there just trying to do their job. I have a lot of friends that are police officers, and I'm always supporting them. And like I said in the other video, When you have people rioting and doing crazy stuff in these low income areas, you're not going to have police going in there policing the areas, because they know that there's a likelihood or a possibility of them accidentally maybe shooting somebody or doing something that can get them fired. So they just lost their career. They can't feed their families. They might go to jail. Something might happen to them where if they know, hey, if I don't go in there in the first place, if I don't even bother with it, if I hear that call and I don't even still go, then, whatever, then I'm fine. I don't increase that possibility of me going to jail or me messing up somehow or me having to shoot somebody and then going on trial for it and having it being national news and never getting a job again if I'm even, put free of charges, whatever it may be. But they're just not going to patrol those areas, and you're only hurting those areas. Why would anybody want to invest in a business that is in a low income area where the police are not policing, crime is high, meaning your business has a good likelihood or a good chance of being looted or robbed, or the person in the convenience store being shot, whether that's the owner or an employee? If he is shot and survives, then you have a lawsuit on your hands for so many things, right? You just lost all your assets. You just lost your retirement. You just lost everything, all the liabilities. Say you didn't have insurance, or even if you did have insurance. What I'm bringing up here, and the point I'm bringing up, is you're only hurting those communities. You're not hurting anybody else. So at the end of the day, really, by you doing all this stuff, you're only hurting the low income areas. And that goes for both white low income areas and African American low income areas and Mexican areas. Doesn't matter the race. You're just end up hurting low income areas. And it really helps nobody at the end of the day. And so this rioting is a bunch of BS. And it's all in the sake of, I'm upset because this person that I've never met, that I've never known, that I know nothing about, got shot and killed because I believe that it was because of the color of their skin. And they're just finding any reason to be outraged, and to show their outrage, again, they're looting businesses. And that's the state of our country, and it's sad. And the Democrats and the left, they love it. They love that stuff. Whereas conservatives and Republicans, we don't. We're not for that, which is why you have people out there protesting Black Lives Matter, and they just think people are racist because of it. Moving on here, I also wanted to give an update because I've been doing a lot of shows in the past few weeks about the $15 minimum wage. If you're new to my show, please check out those cards or those videos where I've talked about how Joe Biden wants to increase the federal minimum wage from, I believe, $7.25 or $7.50 to $15 an hour, and how there are businesses that can eat those costs, but there's also a lot of businesses where that minimum wage could effectively double, go from $7.25 to $15 an hour, even though, they said it's over a span of a few years or whatever, is they're not necessarily able to eat those costs, especially after coming from a pandemic, right? You're already having a ton of liabilities that you have to accrue. You need regrowth or a period of regrowth there, and all you're doing is hindering that regrowth, if that regrowth is going to happen at all after what we just dealt with COVID. So I am not a supporter of increasing the federal minimum wage. Again, your skill should be dictated between you and the employer, not you and the government. The government has no idea what you are worth as an individual. Joe Biden doesn't even know your name. He doesn't even know you exist. He doesn't know you're an actual person yet, okay? And I'm not just talking about his mental state. I'm literally talking about Joe Biden knows nothing about you. So he shouldn't be able to dictate that you're worth $15 an hour. Maybe you're really only worth $8 an hour. Maybe you're worth $20 an hour. But it's not up to the federal government to decide that. You as an individual should be up to decide what you are worth, as well as your employer, because they're the one that's going to pay you. If you go, I'm worth $50 an hour, and they're like, I'm sorry, you're only worth 17 at most on a good day, right? Then there's some discrepancy there, and you have the ability to negotiate with you and the employer. At the end of the day, if he doesn't agree that you're worth that, then hey, you go to somebody else. And if they don't think you're worth that, and you go to somebody else and they don't think you're worth that, then clearly, for the love of God, you're not worth the amount of money that you think you are. Everybody else doesn't agree with that, so they're not going to pay you that. But again, everybody's all for, or I should say the left and Democrats are all for this $15 minimum wage, and they don't know and understand the ramifications that a $15 minimum wage has upon the economy and upon businesses. And also, this is something I teach my students in consumer math, is the possible ramifications of a $15 minimum wage. Again, I say possible because you could be wrong. There could be consequences that aren't considered in the $15 minimum wage, or there's also pros that are taken into effect on a federal minimum wage that maybe I haven't thought of. So I always leave it up to the individual, the student, to go out and research this stuff, and don't always just believe what I am saying. Again, it's up to them to go out and research it and learn for themselves. But this also comes from our friends over at the Daily Wire. It is written by somebody that's growing upon me here as far as a reporter or a columnist, is Emily Zanotti. And she titles it, Mike Rowe on the $15 minimum wage, unskilled jobs are rungs on a ladder. And that's actually a really good analogy and something I might steal from Mike. I really enjoy Mike Rowe. I wish that he would give his opinions and his ideas a little bit more. I think he does a great job, and this is coming from a teacher, he does a great job of explaining ideas very clearly to the American public in a way that is packaged so that they can understand it. And that's the job of a teacher, taking kind of foreign, hard to understand ideas and putting in a way that even the viewer or the listener can understand without having to study it for hours, so on and so forth. It says here, television host Mike Rowe, who is set to debut a new program, 6 Degrees with Mike Rowe, weighed in on the minimum wage debate currently brewing in Congress, suggesting that minimum wage jobs are valuable, but that they should be treated as a bridge to success, not a final destination, meaning they shouldn't be a career job. It's a stepping stone for you, and that's why it's considered rungs on a ladder. To climb up the ladder, you need to go from one rung to another, right? And climb up, meaning you're going from one job and acquiring a certain skill set with that, going to the next job and getting paid more and acquiring more of a skill set, and so on and so forth. And you're going to climb the ladder and build certain skills that are ultimately going to allow you to negotiate and get paid more. But when you have the federal government that's cramming down a $15 minimum wage, it's not going to help those low-skilled workers. It's just not. You think it is, but when they don't have a job anymore, now they're out. Now they're not paying any money, right? They're not getting paid $7.25 an hour, and they're not getting paid $15. Now they're out of job altogether, which sucks for them. Although Rowe is not political, he has weighed in with practical advice on a number of controversial political issues, and late last week, the Discovery Channel host connected the hot-button minimum wage debate to larger goals of training more Americans for skilled jobs that are currently going unfilled. And I agree. A lot of people are trying to go to college. You don't have to go to college to make a crap ton of money. As a tax accountant, there's a lot of guys that own their own businesses that are plumbers, welders, electricians, carpenters. They're making like 6 figures, guys. So there's no reason as to why you need to go to college and get a degree when you can just go to a trade school or a vocational school and acquire a degree or certificate that way and just make buku bucks. There's just no reason for it. So that's what I tell my students is, look, if you want to go to college, that's fine. Know what you want to do. Know the cost of it. Know how you're going to pay for it and what you're going to get paid out of college to be able to fund that student loan that you're taking out, or if you're not working or whatever it may be, how you're going to pay for that college out of you leaving that degree or that university or being successful of getting that degree from that university. But beside the point, it goes on here speaking to Fox Business, Rowe called minimum wage jobs rungs on a ladder, ways to learn valuable skills on the way to bigger and better things, which is exactly what I just mentioned. I want everybody who works hard and plays fair to prosper. Rowe told the network, I want everybody to be able to support themselves, but if you just put the money out of midair, you're going to create other problems. Like there is a ladder of success that people climb, and some of those jobs that are cut out of there for $7, $8, $9 an hour, in my view, they're simply not intended to be careers. They're not intended to be full-time jobs. They are rungs on a ladder, Rowe said. Those jobs are ways for people to get experience in the workforce doing a thing that might not necessarily pay you as much as you would like, but nevertheless serves a real purpose, which is you acquiring skills that over time will allow you to be paid more money at another site or another career or wherever it may be. It goes on to say Congress is currently considering ways to increase the federal minimum wage, a number that sets pay standards across the country, including in states and local jurisdictions that do not outline a specific minimum wage for workers. Initially, Democrats tried to include a minimum wage hike, which would have raised the federal minimum wage to $15 per hour in a COVID-19 relief bill. And as you know, that did not go through. Eventually, though, they were forced to drop the provision because it prevented the bill from passing a reconciliation, a special procedure that allows Congress to pass budget-specific measures by a simple majority vote rather than a 60-vote supermajority. So I just want to pause there for a second because I covered this very, very, very briefly. But what happened was, I forget the lady's name, but she dictated that this shouldn't go through because it's not something that has to do with spending. The federal government is not the one that's spending the money, if that makes sense. Congress is the one that has the keys to the purse. They're the ones that ultimately spends. And because the COVID-19 relief bill was a spending bill, there's no reason as to why this federal minimum wage requirement or for qualification or policy or law, whatever you want to call it, should have been included in a spending bill. If you wanted to get this passed through, you would have to put it in another bill or legislation and push it that way. So I just wanted to be clear because I think there's a lot of misconception or misunderstanding as to why this wasn't involved in the COVID-19 relief bill. Again, it's because it has nothing to do with spending, whereas the COVID-19 relief bill does. And Emily goes on to say, Rowe told Fox Business that he is also concerned that paying people high wages for unskilled labor prevents people from pursuing skilled jobs that present opportunities for growth and that more closely resemble careers. I worry, this is Rowe saying, I worry that the path to a skilled trade can be compromised when you offer an artificially high wage for, I hate the expression, but an unskilled job. So to me, the brightest line needs to be drawn between skilled and unskilled work. We need to encourage more people to learn a skill that's actually in demand. And that's something I tell my students. Don't go find a career or a job that's in basket weaving because you're not going to get paid a lot of money. Or don't go into a career or a degree that's lesbian dance theory. So there's careers that people spend 60, 100,000, six figures on for a degree that when they come out of college is going to pay them $30,000, $40,000, and their minds are completely blown. If they even get a job, by the way, their minds are completely blown that they don't have a job out of college. They just went to Harvard, USC, UCLA, whatever the institution is, great schools, but you don't have a job that's in demand. Simple economics. So nobody's going to hire you because it's not in demand, and nobody's going to hire you for $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 because one, they can't pay for it, or two, you're just not worth that as somebody that's coming out of college with no experience because you weren't willing to do a low-skilled job, say work at McDonald's, Staples like I did in college, or whatever it is. You didn't make the necessary steps to get there. Now, he's referring to also there's the effect of you paying a low-skilled job a higher wage doesn't incentivize others to go after a high-skilled job because you're already paying the low-rung tier of the ladder already so much. There's no reason to make the next step up that ladder because you artificially inflated that bottom rung already. So that bottom rung is almost acting as the next two rungs above it. Does that make sense? So there's no reason to skip and achieve something greater because you've already artificially inflated that bottom tier as it is. And that's not going to help anything. It's not going to help the worker acquire greater skills. And it's also not going to meet the demand of high skilled or skilled work out there in the economy. And that's the problem that he's seeing as somebody that's always in the economy, always talking to the middle class worker or the ones that necessarily don't have a college degree. They're out there grinding and doing the work, making good money, but they're out there grinding, doing the work, and it's a skilled job. And I couldn't agree more with Mike Rowe on it, which is why I want to present this all to you. I think it was a great little take on using a different analogy that now all of you can be equipped with, as well as myself, when having conversations with our friends, our family, or whoever it is, and equip them with that understanding as well. And this might be something I even talk about in consumer math when we're talking about taxes or wages or something like that in the future. We'll see. Lastly, in the news from Blaze Media, we have a California high school teacher blasting students whose parents are concerned about distance learning. It says, "Come at me." Now, as many of you know, I am an educator. I am a high school mathematics teacher. I teach algebra, statistics, and consumer math this year. Usually year by year, the subjects that you teach within mathematics changes, so you're not just limited to those. But that's currently what I am teaching. I don't really see me getting out of teaching statistics and stuff next year. But it says here, a California high school teacher has found herself at the center of controversy after several Zoom outbursts she made went viral. Alyssa Pirro forgive me if I'm mispronouncing her name, an English teacher at San Marcos High School in Southern California was caught on video telling the parents of her students to come at me if they had concerns with her teaching lessons. If your parent wants to talk to me about their profession and their opinion on their profession, I would love to hear that. I know very little about anything else in the other world other than education. However, if your parent wants to come talk to me about how I'm not doing a good enough job in distance learning based on what you need as an individual, just dare them to come at me, the teacher continued, because I am so sick to my stomach of parents trying to tell educators how to do their job. Not the best way of probably wording it, but she's also not necessarily wrong, and I'll explain in a little bit. But just she didn't package it in a great way. Like, it comes across as very strong. And clearly she might be going through some tough times. I don't know. I have never once gone to a doctor's appointment and tried to tell my medical health provider how to treat me. You know why? Because I know nothing about that. In another incident, Pyro essentially screamed at a student who asked about forming a white student union. Pyro said, "You don't need a white student union, Jake. You get everything." So that one's, I'm not even going to comment on that. I don't know what that's in regards. There's not enough information to kind of make sense of what the heck they're talking about. But I'm going to go ahead and roll this clip for you on this interaction with the teacher and her students.
Themselves out. The haters did. They are forced to bring awareness to the situation that they are in because other people put them in that situation.
My question is, in your case, where is the white student union? Because we need all races for equality.
You don't need a white student union, Jake. Oh. You get everything.
If your parent wants to talk to me about their profession and their opinion on their profession, I would love to hear that. I know very little about anything else in the world other than education, okay? However, if your parent wants to come talk to me about how I'm not doing a good enough job in distance learning based on what you need as an individual, just dare them to come at me. Because I am so sick to my stomach of parents trying to tell educators how to do their job. I have never once gone to a doctor's appointment and tried to tell my medical health provider how to treat me. You know why? Because I know nothing about that. I didn't get my degree in medicine. I am going off. I'm sorry. This is my go off period.
Now from that video, you can clearly see the teacher seems to be, I don't know if the correct term is stressed or what, but she's clearly seems to be frustrated with something. And I can understand that as a teacher, especially distance learning, being frustrated. Maybe the administration doesn't have your back. Parents are climbing all over you. Students aren't succeeding. Their students not doing their work. They're not showing up for class. Believe it or not, there's a lot of things that happen that we don't talk about as teachers. That is extremely stressful. That is hard. That honestly is good to have conversations with your coworkers. I have a lot of conversations about what happens in the classroom and at school with my coworkers. Sometimes that need to vent is with them. And it seems that maybe she doesn't have that outlet with her coworkers, or maybe a husband, or if she's lesbian or whatever, maybe a wife, or I don't know. But maybe she doesn't have that outlet to get stuff off her chest. She's just completely taking it out on her students, which isn't a good look, right? That's not a good thing to do. It says, according to Fox News, Pyro was referring to an ongoing lawsuit against Gavin Newsom and several school districts as a local teacher unions force students to remain in distance learning environments. A mother of a student in one of her classes relayed the behavior to San Marcos High School principal Adam Dawson. However, Dawson has failed to address the outburst. Fox News reported, despite calling such behavior inexcusable. She's a bully, the mother wrote in a private Facebook group. These rants were so often my child said he tuned her out and was just trying to get through the class. This is exactly what's wrong with education. And if the school district sweeps this, then they are just as responsible. Basically, if they sweep it under the rug, they're responsible for her actions, which I don't agree with. I mean, you kind of give her an opportunity to fix her mistakes if you want to classify it as one. But I kind of want to talk about this on a little bit more of a teacher's perspective. Is the way she handled this right? No. But that's kind of the thing with being a teacher, is when you do an outburst, not saying I've ever done one, but when you have an outburst, you're doing it to a lot of people that are then going to go and basically spread it as a rumor or spread it as whatever it is. I mean, she's caught on video doing it, but we only have snippets of it. But, she's going, clearly something's happening. Now, I tend to not believe students wholeheartedly. Does that make sense? Meaning, I'll believe a portion of what they say, but there's two sides to every story. Now, the parent here just says, oh, well, my son said this, that now he just basically tunes her out. He says it happens all the time and that he just tunes her out. Well, there's a lot of students that lie to their parents. A lot. And I know that people don't want to believe that, but when I have phone calls home, there's a lot like, oh, well, I thought they were doing this. They told me they were doing this. They told me they were doing that. That's the constant thing that I hear from parents. And so just because your son or daughter is telling you one thing does not actually mean that's literally happening in the classroom. There are exaggerations that are taking place. They'll exaggerate the teacher's tone. They'll add in words that the teacher never said, things like that. So this outburst could have happened only once or twice, maybe a handful of times. I'm not saying it's appropriate, but I'm also saying that don't always just take your son or daughter's their word for it. Now, again, I kind of gave my 2 cents on the whole aspect of you need that outlet to vent, or else that venting might accidentally come out in class, especially when you're already on edge and you've been dealing with a lot of crap, whether from students, admin, parents, whoever it is that's constantly hounding you or not supporting you. And then, you're building that bottle up inside of you, and at some point it's going to burst. And sometimes that might happen during class where a student does something and that just sets you over edge, and then you just start venting to them, which again, as a professional, you're not supposed to do. But something people have to understand as well, and I'm not just giving her the benefit of the doubt because she's a teacher. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt just in any situation, is that, people learn throughout their careers. They make mistakes. And the hope is maybe from this that, these outbursts, she could see, oh, I messed up. I need to learn from this mistake. I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. Is there anything that we can do in place to maybe look for any reports or whatever of any outbursts? Or can I have somebody come in and observe me every, couple times a week, whatever it is, to work with your staff and show them that you're serious about correcting any errors or mistakes. But, I'm kind of laughing at it because I get it as a teacher. I don't vent to my students. I tell them, oh, some classes struggled, stuff like that. Normal conversations that I would have with anybody, but not going off on them like this. Or, yeah, I don't know. We don't have enough context to know what class she's really teaching here. We don't know what the subject or conversation was about for that day. Some people might walk into my classroom in consumer math and think that I'm venting about the Biden administration, about their increase in federal minimum wage or the increase in the corporate taxes. But if they were to walk into that class, they would see, oh, the subject that is actually happening, the unit is literally based on taxes. That makes sense why he's talking about ramifications as a previous tax accountant on what the federal minimum wage would be tax-wise, or what would be the effect of a corporate tax going from 21% to 28%. What was the effect of the corporate tax when it was 35% on companies? How was it beneficial from the Trump administration dropping it from 35 to 21? How was it beneficial to alter the progressive tax system, the brackets? So it seems like I'm just hounding the Biden administration, which I partially kind of am, because I don't believe as a teacher of and teaching taxes that's going to be beneficial for companies. With that being said, I also preface that it's up to the individual, my students, all the time, that you need to go out and research this stuff for yourself. Read and watch as much stuff online as you possibly can. Don't just take my word for it because I'm an educator. Take, whatever word for it is that you agree with based on your opinion that you have read. And so, I don't know if the teacher does that here, but you have a teacher that's just going crazy about distance learning. And, I side with both the teachers and the students here for having to deal with this distance learning. Again, I've been in the classroom since August all year. We have distance learners. It sucks. It's not fun. Students don't do what they're supposed to do. And the blame gets put on the teacher, guys. It's constantly the blame does get put on the teacher. And I'm telling you this as somebody that's only been in teaching for about 3 or 4 years now, coming from being an accountant for 10 years. Switching careers, you do get all the blame. And when you have a student that doesn't do anything, multiple students that don't do anything, but their parents think that they're doing everything there is in class, asking questions, turning in their assignments on time, the disconnect between what's actually happening and what they think is happening is truly mind-blowing. And that's not me venting. That's an everyday, every week occurrence. Parents not knowing what's going on with their son or daughter's education, like not even a clue. You're not talking about 5 students, not talking about 10 students. You're talking 30 to 100 students probably. Just doesn't have an idea of what's going on. And that's not me hounding the parents or the students. That's just what is happening. That's just a fact. And as an educator, you have to learn how to navigate that realm and try and be understanding of both the parent and the student, and just try to serve everybody in the best way possible. And that's how I phrase it to not just my coworkers and my supervisors, but also to parents and students, is I'm just there to support them and serve them as an educator. That's all we're there to do. I will try my best to do my job. That doesn't mean I'm not going to say things that might be wrong at times. I might make mistakes, but the hope is that you will allow that opportunity of forgiveness from me, or you'll forgive me for that error that I've made or that silly thing that I might have said, and that I can learn just as you're learning as well. And not even in regards to mathematics. You just might be off the cuff having a conversation with a student. You might say something that you thought not necessarily was inappropriate, just maybe not the best thing to say at that time. And you reflect on it and you have a conversation with them. Like, I shouldn't have said that during this time. It's not anything sexual or anything weird like that, folks. It's just, that probably wasn't an appropriate time to have that conversation during that class block. For example, maybe talking about Biden's tax increase on corporations during Algebra 2. That's what I mean. It probably is not the correct moment to have that conversation. That was an error of judgment on your part. And, that's where forgiveness comes in, and an apology for maybe having that. That's a very drastic example. But again, that is all the news I have for you today. Police release video of Minneapolis shooting. Claim officer thought she was firing a taser. I'll keep you up to date on everything that's happening in Minneapolis, as well as the police shooting. You have the news, the left-wing media saying it wasn't a riot, when you have the police chief, in fact, saying it was a riot. You have Mike Rowe's article here from the Daily Wire giving his opinion on a $15 minimum wage. And he uses the analogy that unskilled jobs are rungs on a ladder. And lastly, we have a California high school teacher blasting students whose parents are concerned about distance learning, saying, "Come at me." So, as I said, that is all the news I have for you today. Everyone, I sincerely appreciate your viewership. I have a lot of fun doing this, and I hope that comes across on camera. And hopefully you're seeing me grow in my skills as somebody that's talking to a camera rather than a person. I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but I want you to grow with me as this channel grows. There's some of you like Jonas, Iron, there's a couple of you, Sandy, there's a couple of you that come into the comment section all the time, and I love reading your guys' comments, having a conversation with you. You guys are always supporting me, and it's not just those 3. There's a ton of people that are constantly watching this show, and I want you guys to grow with me from a grassroots show being done out of my closet here into a show where hopefully one day I can even have a small little tiny studio, or rent out a little place where we can make a studio and make the show something even bigger than it was now. But that is predicated on me doing my part, but also the viewer doing their parts on liking these videos, leaving me a comment, and also sharing all my content all over their social media, Instagram, Twitter, if you can do it on Instagram, Facebook, MySpace, if that's still a thing. Go crazy with this stuff. Always share those videos. Even if you're not watching the whole thing, just copy and paste it over there and say, hey, check this out. Make sure you subscribe, support this conservative, or support this YouTuber, and I would highly appreciate it. And everyone, please stay safe and healthy during these COVID times, and I will see you here tomorrow on The Bald Brad Show.